Okay, welcome everyone to the 12th edition of the African Science Frontiers Initiative Seminar Series in Science. We are happy to have you in this edition. And we have, all right, that way is here, great. Yeah, so we have a long session today, 3-hour session. We'll have the main session, and then we have the my career, my story session. So it's a really fully packed evening, and I am confident you are prepared to be with us throughout, because we have lots of information to give you today. All right, so I think we just have to start. Those who come late, so that next time they will learn to come early. Yeah, we have played African time so much, but now we have to really be very serious as we move on. Just share my screen. Okay, so the 12th edition will be dealing with the role of media in scientific research in Africa. This is one of the sessions we have in every quarter. We have looked at the private sector. We are looking at the media. We will look at the role of the government and non-governmental organizations, and see the role they are playing in promoting science in Africa. So this quarter we have the media, and this evening I promise you will have capable hands to let us know what the media is doing. Just to repeat that we started this seminar series in January, and it comes every 3 weeks. I am the convener of this seminar series, and my co-convener is Eman. Eman, do you want to welcome the audience?
Hello, welcome everyone to the 12th edition of African Frontier Science Seminar Series. In these seminars, we have a great discussion with eminent African sons and daughters from different disciplines to improve and gain new skills and new results for our discussion to improve science in Africa. I am Associate Professor of Chess at Al-Azhar University, Cairo, Egypt, and I welcome you from every African country, and welcome our eminent moderator and speakers.
Thank you very much, Eman. All right, the African Science Frontiers Initiatives, which we abbreviate as SFI, some call it as FI, some call it as FI. It doesn't matter. We are SFI, so whatever you choose to call it. Our key objective is to promote science as an aspect of development in Africa. So this is a platform that we have established to help support capacity building of African scientists. So we have trainings in career development, research, excellence in research, science leadership, science communication. We have mentoring programs, and we organize seminars and workshops as we have in the seminar series. Our overarching goal is to contribute to Africa's path to development through science. And we believe it is really difficult or nearly impossible to have any tangible development in any nation without the active role of science. That is our conviction. And so science needs to be promoted, and capacity building of the competencies of scientists is very essential. Our vision is to raise the next generation of African scientists with right competencies to drive Africa's developmental and transformational agenda through innovative scientific research. We'll have several missions. We want to instill excellence. We want to organize and coordinate seminars and workshops that will really continues to bring up the discussions around science as a key driver of development. We'll have this as a platform to equip African scientists with the skills they need to do well in their various endeavors, and so on and so forth. So we have seminars, we have workshops, we have hands-on courses we organize. Several of those have been organized during the last 1 year. SFI was set up, and I will come quickly to that. We have mentoring program, which now we have close to 120 mentees in our portfolio, ranging from junior researchers to professors, and we are mentoring them in different aspects of scientific capacity building and career development. We also have research agenda in which we currently are conducting surveys based on the trainings we have had and the needs we have found from those trainings, so that whatever we do, we are doing with evidence that has been generated from the continent and from the scientists in the continent. We have had session on university industry partnership, and we're also conducting research in that. And the goal is that generating this evidence, we can further develop conversations around this to see how we can find solutions on this aspect. All right, when you come to SFI trainings, we have, if you go to our YouTube channel, you will see what the trainees have testified of what they get from here. Eman will help to put our YouTube channel link on the chat box. We don't only train you, we ensure there is a very conscious connection across Africa. And it's really impressive to see how people come from different places: Botswana, Nigeria, Ghana, Egypt, Uganda, Sudan, and so on and so forth, South Africa, and are able to discuss and raise projects and carry out this project. And this is really fantastic. And we love that people can break every barrier for the sake of doing science and achieve something tangible. Everyone is happy. And that is why this platform is quite unique in that way, that we encourage collaboration across scientists across Africa. And we mentor you, really, we mentor you in excellence. The first group we started mentoring have published papers together, acted together in the last 1 year, working. You can imagine people discussing as if they have met, they grew up together, just seeing themselves on Zoom every month discussing. So this is really fantastic aspect of what we do. And so during the last 1 year, we have had 4 very high-powered courses. We have trained 382 scientists across the continent. We have received in these courses 1,690 applications, and the trainees have come from around 30 African countries. And each course training we establish new set of mentees. So what we are having this year, we call it the 2021 seminars, and in the future editions, we have the following on your screen who will be speaking during the sessions that we have. After today's session, the next 3 weeks, we're having the Acting Executive Director of the African Academy of Sciences, Professor Catherine Gila, who will be coming on board to speak. I will introduce the topic later on. But you can see that given the perspective we try to share here, it's always difficult for anyone we invite to say no. They have always said, yes, I will take part. Because Africa's development is what every one of us love to achieve, and everyone wants to contribute in any way possible. And that is why we have high caliber Africans who want to share their experience to help the younger ones to participate in this agenda of developing our continent. And so please don't miss any of the sessions ahead. Yeah, in July, we celebrated the 1 year of African Science Frontiers initiatives, which we say we had little beginnings, but we have a dream of a big future. And we think we are moving in the right direction. We need everyone to support us in any way you can. It could be just knocking on the door of your colleague. It's time to go to SFI seminar. Let's go. It could be voluntary. Some people are volunteering in different ways. Somebody has volunteered to help me construct the advert, put the videos together. What can I do? What can I do? People are asking, because this is something that is there in the heart of everyone. So in any way you can help, it's a story of passion. I want to carry this passion going forward. And that is why we really appreciate all those who come to contribute, speakers, moderators, who want to share their career stories. So we hope that our celebration of 1 year this year will be in a bigger form when we reach 2 years next year. All right, so all the seminars are recorded, all our courses are recorded, and they are freely available on our YouTube channel. So if you miss any aspect, you can rewatch them again. And I see that many of you are taking part in that. We are also in the process of compiling a book from these topics that have been presented since the beginning of this year. And we don't just want it to get wasted, so that everyone can have a copy of that you can look back to say, last 10 years we had this, but this is where we are, which would be quite impressive. The last session of each quarter is 3 hours like we have today. So that is the last session in March, last session in June, September, and December. And that is because we have my career, my story. We have 2 eminent African son and daughter who will present their story today. And what we try to do is to bring people who are excelling, who have motivation to share how they have gone through the rugged path of science and share their experience, how they have made it up to the point. This could be an encouragement to other people, and just to share and ask questions, of course. So don't plan to miss any session. Just to repeat, the time is 5 p.m. GMT. This is not your local time. Convert it to your local time. Usually, I put a link to conversion when I send the invite. So 5 p.m. GMT, convert it to your local time. Each session, we have a separate registration so that we can keep track and try to customize whatever we do to those who have registered. At entering, everyone is muted because it's recorded to minimize background noise. In the main session, we have promised 2 hours. Today, we have promised 3 hours. We will respect it. That is why we don't want to be speaking about African time anymore. So if you want to ask questions, please write it on the chat box. We are in the background collecting them, And once the speakers finish, we will show them on the screen, and the moderator will moderate the Q&A time. And if we have time and the speakers are happy, we will allow people to speak also once the written questions have been addressed. All right. We are not ending the seminar series this year. We are continuing next year. We have slightly a different program for next year. Next year, we want to tell a story of what African scientists are doing. We want to hear from them. What are people doing in engineering? What research are they doing that is contributing to African development? You can see that once the COVID came, you heard of development, innovations across board. You see African kids who were developing tools to wash their hands. And so people are doing innovations across board. I want to invite people to tell us the story, and we are covering all fields of human inquiry, which we have categorized in this way. This may not capture everything, all the fields that are there, but we want to invite each quarter people from engineering, technology, information, arts and humanities to present what research they are doing to promote Africa development. So we'll come back to this just to highlight to you. And many of you have participated in the survey we sent out to suggest names of people we can invite. We are working on that. And then from January, we will enter into an exciting terrain. I think all of you would like to contribute. All right, quickly, let me actually introduce the speaker for today. It's an honor for me to do this because I never knew that I will meet our speaker by name, Mr. Deborah-Fay. Many of you may know him or you may not know him. I've not known him until, as a person until this seminar series started. I have been a fan of his newspaper, Premium Times Nigeria, since it started. And I am really happy to have him here because through that platform, he has shown that excellence is possible. Excellence is possible, regardless of wherever you find yourself. His newspaper has been in the forefront of leading investigative journalism, and I always read it because it is clear, truthful, and give us a perspective that some of us would like to have in our country. So he's the current publisher of Nigeria's leading investigative newsroom platform called Premium Times. But previous to this, he has served as a pioneer policy director and chief of staff at the Nigerian's anti-corruption agency called the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, as we know it. His work as editor during the years of limited dictatorship in Nigeria earned him first in 1995, the International Editor of the Year Award of the World Press Review. The PEN Center Freedom to Write Award in 1996, and the Press Freedom Award 1996 of the National Association of Black Journalists in New York. In 2017, the Nigerian Union of Journalists awarded him his Press Freedom Award. And during that same year, the Nigerian Institute of Journalists conferred him a fellowship award and the Diamond Awards for Media Excellence. The Committee to Protect Journalists has also announced him co-recipient of the 2020 International Human Rights Award. He's currently on the board of the African Regional Fact-Checking Organization, AfriCheck, as it's called, of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, of the Panos Institute for West Africa, and International Fact Checkers Network. In 1995, he founded the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism. 10 years after that, he co-founded the first investigative journalism newsroom in Nigeria, as I mentioned, the Premium Times. He was educated at Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria, the Washington College of Law, and the University of Oxford. So we have today an eminent moderator. This is a brief of what I can tell you about him. If you want to read more, I have the Wikipedia link to him on the screen. You can send me a private chat here too, I will answer you. He is a man of conscience. He has been chased around. He has gone on exile. His family has suffered for it. His wife has suffered for it, in jailed while he's chased here and there around the world. But here he is today. He has made a point that excellence is possible in Africa, and you can make a difference. And so he has identified with this cause, and we are happy to have him. So Dapo, I will hand over to you. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Bright, and thank you very much for all the cohorts of the Frontier. This is, without doubt, one of the most important endeavors, I think, that's happening on our continent. We've been in the backwater for long, and if there's any area that we really need to be at the front seats and then also conquer the future, it's in the realm of sciences. I thought that Bright invited me to this event because he knew I never was able to pass the the grades to make a science class. so I accept to be here today anyway. Partly also because I think what the Frontier has been able to do up to this point is something of extreme commendation. And I look forward to being able, since I'm a little bit planted in a number of media organizations in the continent, to try to forge some kind of relationship and dialogue that will give science science stories, as we will say it in the media, some appropriate role. I look at Nigeria, for instance, and if you take every day's newspaper, science is really not where you go to. I mean, the whole world and craziness of the African political class has become the menu of our media narratives. And it's just important that right now, those things that can lead us ahead, get there. Well, that's just as far as that's concerned. My duty is a very modest one on a day like this, when we have, two of the greatest stories and minds, in science communication, who will be speaking to us. And I would like to read briefly from their resume, and then also speak for 2 minutes, if you don't mind, at what I see as the interface between media storytelling and the whole challenge of science. I think it's made richer, and it speaks very well that the Frontier actually also chose 2 women. That's a very important point that I think, so that gives a great sense of, the kind of minds that, are directing the purpose around which we are here today. So let me start this modest journey and then introduce people that I will consider that we all want to be on our side. And permit me to start with Deborah-Fay. It's a communication professional with experience in developing communication strategies, media engagement, policy engagement, writing, and devising on and offline communication materials, and building and maintaining strategic relationships. She has managed aspects of strategy, branding, and events from development to implementation. She is experienced in content development for a variety of media, including publications, the web, and social media, and indeed in media engagement. Her work in communication has followed her to play key roles in creating, launching, and implementing a project to build the capacity of African science journalists, to train and to support scientists, to communicate to non-scientific audiences, conceptualize a database to map and track investments and impact for the African Academy of Sciences, and then to develop branding materials and conceptualize a photography database. I feel extremely proud to say that brings me and Deborah in the same boat, myself being a photographer at the other side of my world. But prior to joining the AAS, who was a science journalist, and then she holds a master's degree in science journalism from the City University of London. We welcome you, Deborah, today, and we look forward with great enthusiasm. Allow me to do so quickly also introduce our second speaker, Juliette Mathieu. She's a science communication consultant, and previously the African Academy of Sciences Head of Communications and Public Relations. Juliette holds a Master of Science Communication from Imperial College in London, and a honors and bachelor's in biomedical sciences from Monash University in Australia. She is creative at heart. She's passionate about development and science communication in Africa. She was in 2020 included in the Global Women in Marketing list of hidden stars, pioneers, and future leaders, influencing and shaping the marketing and communications community. In 2021, she was among the top 10 finalists of the BBC International Podcast Competition. Just as I think Bright had indicated, we have access to their full bio if we want to access that. But regarding what I think we are faced with here today, it is a that, but also a genuine need. So I guess that our speakers are walking us through this from a desert to a lush landfill, which is what science currently represents in the world of media. But the significant thing is that they are approaching this through their own stories. And nothing more than anything conquers the imagination and helps us to chart new worlds than the world of stories. This is what we typically do in journalism when we are doing it well. It's true that a lot of what is reported in African media is still the world of reports rather than the world of stories. And there's a little difference between that. But stories have that great capacity to create the right imagination, and in creating that kind of imagination to put us really at the point of what you might call consequence of trying to create what the imagination has envisioned. Without much ado, our two speakers have agreed to speak together, so they'll be doing joint presenting. And I think it's appropriate at this point, to call them. But a few housekeeping things. I know that as they go along, we have our thoughts and questions that we would like to ask him. Please do us the favor of putting your questions in the chat box. Through a little liaison between Bright and myself, we'll archive those questions and then ask at the end of the presentations. Hopefully, there will be also more time to expand the scope for more questions beyond those that had been archived. But at this point, I think let me welcome my good friends now that we are in a relationship. So Juliette, thank you. Take the floor.
Thank you, Dapo. I mean, what an introduction. I have never been introduced until I've felt it's fantastic to have such an introduction from both Bright and yourself. We are very honored to be here today. I am just quickly going to share screen. Let me make it full screen. Can you confirm for me that it's currently in full screen? Yep.
Sure.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dapo. Thank you, Bright, for giving us this opportunity. For us in East Africa and a bit of Southern Africa where Deborah is, it's a bit late in the evening, but it's such an honor to spend this time in the evening really talking about science communication. In fact, for us, the honor is in that rarely, we're usually working on the back at the back of the scientists, you know, we're supporting them. We're never at the front line. So to be given this platform, this podium to be able to speak this evening is really a massive honor, and we're really grateful for it. So as we've said, Dapo has done a really good introduction. We also felt that it would be good to hear from the horse's mouth a little bit about us. So we've prepared 2 quick slides. I'll go first, and then I'll welcome Deborah to go next. Just a little bit about ourselves. So I really focus on building African scientists as brands with expertise and knowledge to propel the continent's development. We recognize that African scientists really need to begin to step up and be seen as these people with the knowledge and the expertise. And as Bright has talked about, the continent will not advance further without us recognizing the role science, technology, and innovation plays. I am by birth, I'm Kenyan, so I live in Nairobi, but I do consider myself as a global citizen. As Dapo has said, I have a master's in science communication from Imperial College London, and then I'm an epidemiologist. I'm actually a trained scientist. I did malaria research in Kenya for a couple of years before I transitioned into science communication, because I really felt the need whenever I would go out into the field to collect data, to interact with the public. I used to collect malaria data in public hospitals. So just people understanding what exactly a scientist was, that gap, I could see why the gap was there. And also sharing the information with, for example, our National Malaria Control Program, and them just asking, okay, so how was the data collected, and pushing that information. I could see the role of science communication, and that's why I transitioned from being an epidemiologist into science communication. I love traveling, and I once lived in Okinawa, and if I had the opportunity, I'd happily move from Kenya, Nairobi back to Okinawa, because I really enjoyed my time working at the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. When it comes to science communication, my key areas of expertise are in communication leadership. So more on the aspects of strategic communication, branding, content development, and then also training. I've been a trainer for a couple of years now because I really like the aspect of really building people's capacity to be able to communicate science better. I strongly believe that this is Africa's century. This is the 21st century, and it has to be Africa's century, whether we maximize on science, technology, innovation, and whether we maximize on the youth as well. We've been talking for the longest time about the demographic dividend. This is the continent that harbors the youngest of the population around the world. So I think we need to maximize on this opportunity. Allow me to invite my colleague, Deborah.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Deborah-Fay, as you've heard today. I want to be a force of nature to transform science communication in Africa. So, I mean, from my experience, I think there's still a field that is still to be institutionalized. So you find that a lot of institutions don't actually have science communication professionals, yet they are quite important if we really want to be telling the stories of what our scientists are doing across the continent. So I would like to see that being transformed. I'm from Zimbabwe, Bulawayo, which is the second largest city. I also call myself a citizen of the world because I've lived in Cape Town, Nairobi. I've lived in Cape Town, London, Munich, Nairobi, even though right now I'm actually speaking from South Africa. I'm a firstborn, which automatically means you're a black taxpayer. I don't know if you know what that means, but basically it means that you're looking behind you and taking care of others. I'm a Christian. I also hold a master's degree from the City University of London, and I'm a journalist who transitioned into science communication. My greatest loves are Earl Grey tea, pap ugali is also called ugali or fufu in Nigeria, sushi and maputi, which are quite odd combinations, but it should tell you that I'm a versatile individual. In communication, my experience is in strategies, crisis communication, media engagement, content development, training, and a host of other things. So one of the things that legacies that I would like to leave behind in my life, at least, is to inspire people and empower them to be forces of nature and be their true and authentic selves. And of course, because without relationships, we cannot advance in any area of our lives, whether it's within our career or our personal lives. So that's why one of the important things that I want to be able to leave behind is a legacy of strong relationships.
Thanks, Deborah. So we'll quickly move to an exercise. As Bright and Dapo had housekeeping rules, we also have our own housekeeping rule. It's actually only one, that we will allow every single person to use their mobile phones during this session. And the reason for that is that all our exercises will be run on mobile. So we want to begin by running through a quick exercise, one, to allow us to test that system, and also just to understand the people, the audience in the room. And as science communicators, it is always important to understand our target audience. So we will begin with a short exercise. This is the exercise. I will, whenever I'm doing this exercise, just to quickly note that I will have to stop and share a different screen. So I want you to go to slido.com. It's at the bottom here, slido.com, and there will be a code. So I'll quickly share that. 1 second. So you should be seeing this slide, slido.com, and the code that you should be entering is #153306. 153306. And the question is, what are your personal goals? And we'll give you just 30 seconds to say what your personal goals are. Deborah, you and I can enter a response so that people get a sense of what we'd want. Okay, the responses are beginning to come in. So just really short sentences. What are your personal goals? And we're asking you to go to your mobile phone on the browser, type slido.com, which is just at the corner here. And the code that you're supposed to enter is 153306. I will also, yep, thank you, Bright. Excellent scientist, to be a mother to many, fantastic. We have 30 seconds remaining. Couple more responses coming in. Help give science visibility in the media, great, yes. Promote science excellence and application in Africa, fantastic. Transform science communication. To be financially independent, yes, I subscribe to that one. To be fulfilled in my career and life, We have 15 more seconds. Excellence research, be the best researcher in environmental science, fantastic. To help make Africa a better place through science, yes. To promote childhood care and promote this in Nigeria, yes. Remember, again, personal goals. So I really like that I'm seeing the science aspect coming through in the personal goals. So telling me that most of you are doing something that you're very passionate about, even in your career, to be a great researcher. 5 more seconds. Okay, time's up. The last one that has just come in: to project excellence in my career and impact my generation positively in academics. Fantastic. Thank you everyone who's participated. For the rest, there's always an opportunity to share during our next exercise. So allow me to go back to our presentation. So thank you. When we're looking at your personal goals, I think it's more to inform how does your career and your life merge? And Deborah will be talking a little bit about this as she comes to the end of this slide, because it will touch authentic living. So I don't know if it's because it's a Sunday, but when I was putting the slides together, I was very inspired by the Bible, and Deborah was saying she was Christian. So for anyone who's, for the non-Christian, please just humor me during the course of this presentation, but I'm going to borrow a little bit from the Bible here. So when we were talking about in the beginning, I don't know about you, and maybe some people can comment on the chat box, but if you look at these photos, what strikes you in terms of the difference of the photos when you're moving from left to the right? So maybe one response or two before I quickly say for me, what are these images trying to communicate? So what is the difference between the images that we're looking at? I'll go with the first person who comments in the chat box. Any image, any comments in terms of the difference, aside from black and white to color? Okay, let's see the first one. Okay, not to take too much time, let me just continue on this. So in terms of knowledge and information and engagement, we feel that it's powerful for people to have knowledge. It's powerful to be engaged in information and to know, to be aware. The thing I was trying to highlight from these photos that we have here is that if you look at the images on the left-hand side, you will see a lot of differences in terms of gender, a lot of differences in terms of race. And if you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, what you'll begin to hear in terms of conversation is how people's understanding of the issues of race, of the issues of Black people and the experiences in America, for example, African Americans, has been informed such that now we're beginning to have more people participating in those conversations. So more people begin to understand. We have a lot of more white people. Some of these photos were taken in European countries. I believe maybe the top one would have been either Denmark or France. I could be wrong, but it was in one of the European countries, meaning that the information is being shared widely about the issue Black people are facing. The conversations are being shared. There's a lot more engagement of it. So with that, all I was trying to emphasize with this slide is that knowledge, information, engagement is powerful. You need to be able to engage people, and as scientists, it's very important to engage people. I'm borrowing from the Bible because, you know, the Bible has the two books, the Old Testament and the New Testament, and you'll see why for me that context in this slide deck was very important, because in the Old Testament we have science. Science has been there for centuries now, and we know its value. We know what it's brought to us, the information we've gained from it. It's taught in schools, and it straddles all through such that now we have people, it's a career. People will go from the undergraduate, masters, PhD, postdoc, and become professors and also leaders of research institutions or research groups. And with that, we have identified as science communicators that there are three types of scientists. One, you'll have the generic scientist, the person who works in the lab or works in the field. For them, they're interested in knowledge gathering, in information gathering. There is a problem, what is the solution? Here's a hypothesis, how do I develop a research around that hypothesis to come up with findings? The second category of scientists is someone who they've been engaged in the research for a long time, but now begin to feel the need to communicate it beyond the scientific community, beyond the people in the lab, beyond the people in the field, beyond the people in that office space. And then there's the scientist who is a communicator. So somebody who feels I could transition into science communication, Or I feel the need to now work with science communicators and do both. So do the research and also do the science communication. Right now, there's a lot of focus around the first type of the scientists. And those are the reason for that is also, if you look at how scientists are trained, they're trained to do the research. Not many of them are trained to be communicators. Even in undergraduate, it's very rare that there would be a course offered in science communication. So what is science communication? Well, science communication essentially is the purpose of it is to empower its recipients by sharing that knowledge to other people or other audiences other than the scientific community. It can enhance democratic process or help develop new ones where it does not exist. And it also prevents the alienation of sections of society, such that you just don't have the scientific community on one side. It begins to really move out of that section into the public sphere, into the policymakers, into even the media. But it also may also serve the interests of the scientific community as well as the paymasters. And if you look at most of the countries in the West, the public, it's a public taxpayers that will generally tend to contribute to research. They will fund research. When we talk about science communication, one of the things I want to emphasize, and I'd said earlier that for me, my focus is always on strategic communication, is we need to always pay attention to the tenets of communication and in building a communication strategy. So these will rotate around the 8 areas that you're looking there, the colorful ones. The first one would be to define your objective as a scientist. Why do you want to communicate? You know, and these are closely tied to your overall objectives of the research work that you're undertaking. You have to know your audience or identify your audience. And by this, as science communicators or communications people, we usually like to cluster them around primary and secondary. Primary being the main people who you want to influence. It could be policymakers, you want to change a policy or a law. It could be the media, you want them to start reporting accurately on data. COVID vaccine, for example, dispel myths. And then the third one would be crafting your communication. So when you come into communication and engaging various target audiences, the difference here begins to inform how you put your messages. So for example, you would not be giving a lot of data to general population, because sometimes if you said 3 billion is spent in research funding in Nigeria, if a member of the public cannot relate to 3 billion, you could simplify that message. So we always talk about crafting your communication to be able to reach the target audience so that such that they could relate. Engaging partners, people who fund your research work, and then choosing your channel of communication. Is it mainstream media? Is it social media? Is it community participation or barazas? In Kenya, we call them barazas, where you invite members of the community to have a discussion. And then you choose your format of engagement. And then you measure your impact. And once you've been able to measure your impact, you can look at amplifying your impact. And when you have this communication strategy, essentially what you're looking at is telling that powerful science story. And Daphne was alluding to it earlier, and I really liked, I was almost feeling that he was participating in our debrief, the one Deborah and I had earlier this afternoon when we were talking about our slide deck. And we were focusing on science communication can be very broad, it can be very overarching, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to tell that science story in a relatable way, in a memorable way. So for us, there are a couple of communication tactics. We've highlighted 5 here. The first one being the media. And with the media, you need to start thinking as a scientist, if I publish my article on a scientific journal, how do I then reach the media? For sure, you will not reach the media by sending them a 16-page publication. You need to simplify it into a 1-page article, and that's what we call a press release, or an op-ed, a feature story, TV, radio interviews. When it comes to public policy engagement, this is about talking to public policymakers. And I've talked about a couple of those using, for example, the barazas. Policy briefs also used when you're engaging policymakers. Multimedia, the use of photography, video is so important. It's always important for scientists to have an archive of good quality photos and high resolution photos that tell a story of their work. We always say that a photo tells 1,000 words. So you have to have a digital library. Social media, this, we can't discount it. It's very important to have social media in your corner. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then writing blogs. So tell your story or a success story around your work. So that was more on the Old Testament in terms of scientists. When it comes to the New Testament, this is where science and science communication. We want to focus around thinking and talking science communication. This is the emphasis, and I believe this is what Bright had in mind when he invited us to be able to talk about science communication. Essentially, the science would be the knowledge and the information, that life cycle, the tools. I've talked about science communication or communication strategy. The tool here, or the emphasis will be on the art of storytelling. The proof will be the scientific knowledge or the evidence that scientists are able to gather. The practice will be in telling that particular story. And when you have thinking and talking, it's knowledge and action should equal results. So with this particular, I'm really a fan of statements and quotes, and I really liked this one, that your future is created by what you do today. So I know as scientists, we're taught to do the science, to do the research work, but now we're introducing the element of science communication, and we're saying, don't do it tomorrow, don't postpone it to tomorrow, do it today. So as we progress into now the highlight of the role of media, I just wanted to emphasize a couple of points. And the first one was around the do's for African scientists when it comes to science communication, that you need to develop an understanding and appreciation of the role of science communicators and the profession itself, because it's in that understanding that you see the value of it. You have to be on social media. I think there's always a fear when you speak to scientists and we say to them, set up your Twitter page, and I say, what for? But you need to be on social media and you need to post regularly about your work, because when you engage different audiences, they even ask you questions about your work that you might not have necessarily thought about. When you're pitching for funding or requesting for funding for research, also consider allocating some funds to communication when you write your proposal. If you have a communications department, they're very equipped to be able to highlight what are the areas that you can request funding for. And we're beginning to see a lot of funding partners really paying attention to communicating or public engagements, if you like. Maximize on your communications department. I've said when you're putting together a proposal, invite them in, and then also feel free to engage with the media. Again, moving scientists from that scientific community conversation into the public sphere. So engage with the media, engage with policy makers, and engage community members as well. The things that we encourage African scientists not to do is do not ignore your local reporters over international reporters. We tend to see sometimes, say with the pandemic now, somebody saying, oh, I have a journalist from the local Ghanaian media house, and you say you don't have time for them. And the minute the BBC journalist comes, you quickly have time for them. Don't do that. They share. These journalists know each other. They share information. It's not good. And the research you're doing is at a local level. It's very important for the information to come from the local reporters going out, as opposed to from global coming back in. Avoid using jargon. Yes, you publish in scientific journals, but when it comes to engaging various target audiences, and this is where that communication strategy, the 4 points were very important. When you're speaking to various audiences beyond the scientific community, you really need to break down the science. And don't dumb it down. So there's a difference between using jargon and dumbing down the science. So hemoglobin is hemoglobin, yes, but you can also define it. It could be the red blood cells. So there's a way in which you can maintain the word, but give a description of it. Don't feel like you have to have 30 years of experience to talk about your work. My very first interview was actually on BBC when I was an undergraduate. I had not even published my first paper. I was on the verge of publishing it, but I was invited to talk about a malaria crisis that we're having in the country as a researcher. And I had all my points. My talking points were there. I was supported by the science communication department, and I was able to do that. And then don't overthink or over-explain. Just keep it very simple. If you're able to do, always tell that story. tell the story. And that's how, for me, when I was interviewed for my first interview, I just told the story about malaria in the country and the statistics that we had at the time. Don't be too busy to engage and communicate your work. Always allocate time. If you get an opportunity to speak to various audiences, please accept those. They will add value to your work, and you also get that exposure that is required. So as I'm concluding this section on science communication, I just want to highlight a couple of rules for us that we've identified and we usually used to use in our department. Was that it's always important to know your audience, because when it comes to science communication, your audience has just grown. Let go the ego. It doesn't matter if you're a professor, a doctor. To the public, all they want to know is the evidence. Does the COVID vaccine work? Yes. Is there a cure for malaria? What are the preventative measures that we can begin to use to make sure that we don't develop cancer? So usually people don't care whether it was professor or doctor, so-and-so who said it. I mean, if I know it's a scientist, yes, but the title will not matter. It's more of the information that I want to take away from it. Less is more. I know as a scientist, detail is always very important, but when it comes to the public, that detail is, they're not so interested in the detail, but more on the facts. A good story sticks. So if you can tell a good story, it's memorable and it's relatable, use it, make it useful. Is it a story for your audience? If it is, then they're likely to use it. So as I think Deborah is going to mention in social media, you'll quickly see that you need to also look at what are the trending topics and how do I maximize on that conversation. If we're talking about the COVID vaccine, can we begin to talk about and the importance of just having vaccines, whether it's even for polio. You know, in Kenya, I know recently we had a polio outbreak. So just talking about vaccine development, the history of vaccines, the history of polio, where we've moved from. I know the treatment for polio has really changed over the last couple of years. If we can tell those stories as scientists, it's really helpful and the public usually appreciates it. Humor, if you can use light-hearted humor, it engages minds and hearts. It makes people feel that science is not, for scientists, it's not very technical, that even for them, they can understand it, they can read articles. They don't have to read an article about a member of parliament who was somewhere else, that I can read a science story and understand that, oh, wow, that's really useful. So tell a tale. Tales are those that can be retold over and over again. So if you can, please tell those stories. And that's why we've crossed there from science communication to science storytelling. If you all remember the story about Adam and the apple, we all know it very well. We can recount it in our sleep. We all went to high school or primary, depending on which country you were taught, about Isaac Newton and the apple. We knew about gravity. Again, another story we can recount in our sleep. And then our laptops, apples. If you're using an Apple machine, we all know the story of Steve Jobs. So if you haven't caught on already, the format is actually storytelling. So we want to be able to tell those powerful science stories so that people can remember them. So why is storytelling important? It provokes action or emotion. It captivates an audience, especially when you use simplified data that is relatable. It keeps the public informed. Science is equals to knowledge. That can be used as an advocacy tool, and then it improves the understanding of science in Africa, and it's a good trick to be able to use to engage the public in science. So allow me to invite now Deborah, who will now move us along into the key area of our conversation tonight. Deborah, over to you.
Thank you. I'm trying to see if I'm able to move my slide.
1 second, and I'll just assign. Yep.
Okay, can I just share it from my end because it's not moving from mine? Sorry.
Deborah, I'll control it for you.
Okay. So Hi everyone, thanks again. I want to tell you about a project called the Africa Science Desk that we implemented at the African Academy of Sciences. So the whole idea of this project was to really assess the level of science coverage in Africa, and also hopefully increase the quantity and quality of science stories and provide mentorship for science journalists across the continent by getting senior science journalists to handhold the ones who are still coming up in the field, and building partnerships with newsrooms, and hopefully igniting conversations within homes about science. And the end of it was an inline assessment that gave an overview of how the project performed. So we started off with the baseline assessment, which had surveys and also face-to-face interviews of about more than 1,000, thousands actually, members of the public from the 4 countries, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and Senegal. These are the 4 countries where we did the pilot of the Africa Science Desk. And what we found out from that baseline assessment was that people were interested in science, but because it was not saved in the menu of the publications that the local media, they didn't really have access to it. And then that journalists don't have training to cover science. So most of the journalists graduating or working in newsrooms have other degrees outside of science. And also because they are poor remuneration and the relationship with scientists, they opted for other fields such as politics, entertainment, and all that, which are more better paying. And also because of that, the requirement by editors who feel that politics and entertainment and sports so better than science news. And then we also spoke to scientists, most of whom did not have experience in being covered in the media. And those that had experience, they complained about being misquoted, so they were worried about engaging journalists. So we had 20 mentors in the Africa Science Desk. These were basically senior science journalists who worked or were writing for publications or were editors in publications that include Nature, SciDev. And so this took on the task of hand-holding journalists who were upcoming in the field, helping them to write a story, from refining a pitch to interviewing the subjects, and also the scientists will be covered in the story and also writing the stories. And so they would also help with the editing of the stories, such that when they got to their media publication, then they were quite ready to be published as well. So, and then at the bottom, we have some of the mentees who wrote for us. You'll notice that they are mostly from local media publications within the countries that we're working with, because we wanted to make sure that these stories are published and they're consumed by the media. So we were finding journalists who were already working in those local media publications, so that they can they'll be able to get ready publishing from their editors. So some of the stories that were covered by the mentees, by the people that we funded with the Africa Science Desk. And for the results for this Africa Science Desk, so we published 75 stories, mostly on health, climate change, and food security. These were the topics were centered around the strategic objectives of the AAS, and most of the writers were women, 21 women and 18 journalists, 18 male journalists. And you might notice that there are actually less numbers for the writers than the stories. It's because some of them were repeat writers. We also funded one institution, which was City Press in South Africa. Our publications were plastered across those 4 countries. And like I said, mainly the big publications within those countries. And our reach, because we're also measuring the readership and also measuring the viewership and the listenership, for those stories, just to ensure that they're getting to the ordinary men and women who needs to know about the science. So in print, we had about 60 million readers and 40.2 million those who were reading online. And for viewership and listenership, that's radio and TV, we had about 60 million viewers. It was important for us to be able to assess and measure the impact of these stories that we are finding for people to publish. So at the end of the project, which was last year, we did an assessment, and what we found out from interviewing those who had taken part in the project and also the mentors was that they felt that the quality of their writing improved, something which the mentors also noted, because they could see an improvement in the quality of the pitches and also in the quality of the stories that were being submitted by the journalists that they were handling. And also it impacted their careers as well. So some of the journalists that were funded through the ASD actually won international awards, and they also had opportunities to write for new publications as well, publications outside of their local ones, so that they had an additional income. And of course, the mentors felt, because they were giving back to the community, they felt fulfilled, because they're now contributing to training the future generations of scientists. The policy impact, some the stories that we funded managed to actually make impact in the countries that these were published in. For example, in Kenya, there was a story that was published by one of our mentees that led to a change in procurement processes at the Ministry of Health. And of course, there was an increased partnership between editors, journalists, and mentors. I think the editors were quite excited to get a ready-made story to publish, because like journalists, editors also don't have a background, or we're not trained in science. So sometimes they find it hard to edit science stories, and then so at the end of the day, they actually publish them because they don't have experience in editing those stories. So because the Africa Science Desk gave them stories that were already edited through the mentors, they were quite excited to just publish those stories. They didn't need to do anything with them. Next slide. And I think this quote from Paul Adepeju, who's a Nigerian journalist, summarizes what the impact in terms of creating a culture of learning, because he got successful at to get funding from the Africa Science Desk after he pitched for the fourth time, and so that taught him to. And the stories that he wrote were picked up in Nigeria by other publications as well. So he was quite proud to see how that experience helped him in terms of growing in his career. Next slide. So we're quite interested to hear from you if there's any scientists who've actually worked in with the media in terms of giving media an interview, have written an op-ed for the media. Juliette is just about to do another slide, and please share your answers with us. Your answers with us just by.
So we're going to ask you to pick up your mobile phone again and go to slido.com. And for those who are beginning to just join, it will ask you for a code, which is 153306. And the question is, name 3 mainstream media houses that you received coverage from on your research work or research area. It should be the second question appearing on slido.com. And the code again is 153306. So this could be to give you, some of you, some ideas. Yes, could be SciDevNet, Nature, The Star. That's a local Kenyan, I think I'm recognizing that as a local Kenyan newspaper. I think there could be The Guardian, Nigeria. Modern Ghana is also a good option. Mail and Guardian in South Africa. The Conversation, none. Scientific American. Let's get a couple more responses. The first question had about 19 participants, so I will give this about a minute. None is beginning to become a big word cloud. The Tribune. Reuters, yes. The Guardian UK. Some ideas there for international press is also acceptable here. If you've received from the BBC, even the African Business, African Weekly, New African, yes, the Telegraph. Also consider TV, radio's options. If you've had VOA, Voice of America interviews, I said the BBC, I was thinking about TV, can also be the BBC. Also Al Jazeera, I see CNN there, yes, The Punch, Nigerian, yeah. New York Times, fantastic. Any on the Washington Post, any from Financial Times? We have 15 more seconds. Independent UK. Okay, Debs, allow me to go to the next question.
Sure.
So we saw that none was very popular and we anticipated that that would happen. So we have prepared a question for you. If you have not received any media coverage at all, tell us why. Debs, do you want to throw in a couple of ideas of why that could have been that none was a big bubble? Is it science journalists are not lovely people from experience? Yes, that's usually a common one. I am afraid of being misquoted. We're assigning 1 minute to this question. We're now at the 50-second mark. That's a very interesting one. I have never thought to report my work in mainstream media. Great. "30 seconds. If you have not received any media coverage, tell us why. I have not grown to that stage in my place of work. They are picking people according to seniority. That's a debatable one.
Definitely a debatable.
And Apple, maybe when we're having the Q&A, we could have a discussion about that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I had no idea of the importance of that. Fantastic. I work with a research institute on trypanosomiasis, but most findings can only be aired if approval is given by the management. So a bit of the red tape there that we're beginning to see. Because remember, again, as you engage members of the public, even just explaining what trypanosomiasis is, and reminding people the current statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics, is it a big problem currently? Should the public be doing something to prevent it? You don't have to share the latest, treatment, the latest, what could it be? Findings, not yet. I understand those come under embargo, but basic information is always important to keep communicating. Just being aware of the importance of this, yes, media covers conferences interview people and not pay attention to project itself or the scientists. That is true on both sides, media and scientists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I will. Debs, let me stop there and give it back to you to present now the subsequent slides.
Okay, cool.
Back to you, Debs.
So I think a lot of you have said the reasons why you don't engage the media from, I didn't think, I have not thought about it. I did not see the importance of it. There is red tape in my organization. Just for us to flag the fact that the reason why it's very important for you to do that. One, because the media reaches a wider and more diverse audience than you would if you were to just speak to your peers in the field. So if you want your work to have any impact in those world, and I think most of you talked about your personal goals, about being excellent and all that. The media is one of the ways that you can use in order to achieve those personal goals, because they'll help you to get your work where you need it to go. And it establishes you as an expert. So if you're being quoted in the media, the likelihood of that other scientists within the field, other people, even policymakers, funders, of noticing you is very hard. So it's very important for you if you want to see any career progression, for you to be able to get any media coverage. And of course, it's an opportunity to showcase your research and to get the public to know about it and hopefully engage with it as well. So you might be asking yourself, what the heck do I have to offer the media? I'm not senior enough to have anything to offer to the media. I don't think it's a matter of whether you're junior or senior. It's a matter of your availability to the media. And there's a lot that you can offer the media. There's an opportunity to have interviews with the media, answering questions that they might have about topical issues. For example, if a journalist is writing about COVID-19 and they need somebody to comment, you can make yourself available. And of course, if there's any news that you might have about your research or any topical issues around your research, you can make yourself available and maybe highlight even to journalists. And also op-eds, because we're going to talk about them a little bit more. I think I won't say more about it at this point. So the things that the experience that journalists have of African scientists, that they are actually often reserved, and they're often unwilling or unavailable to make a comment about anything, and they take time to respond to emails. So a journalist writes to you and they have a deadline in 3 days, but you respond about 7 days later. So for them, the news is already stale. They're not going to be able to cover your story. And sometimes scientists don't respond at all, and that really works to your disadvantage, because the media is your ally, not your enemy, and they have by using them, you have that opportunity to actually give legs to your research, as opposed to just when you don't use the media. So like I said, the media is your ally, and if you really want to ensure that your work has an impact, you need to be using them. For example, they say this quote that says that the policymakers are likely to take up an issue if it has been covered in the media. So you just want to make sure that you get that. So the ways that you can use the media, one, op-eds. So an op-ed is usually written by somebody who's not working for that media house. It's usually between 800 to 1,000 words. Sometimes it can get longer. And it's really, the idea of an op-ed is to set the agenda, inform and educate, and to give you an opportunity to share your viewpoint about a topical issue or a subject area. And the important thing about the op-eds is that because you are the writer, you don't get misquoted. So you can write and be assured that your work, the final work, would be as accurate as you need it to be. So when do you consider an op-ed? When you're about to launch a new initiative or have research results that you want to highlight. For example, if you have a paper that's coming out And because if it's being published by a journal, it's likely to be more scientific. You can write something more simpler around the issues that your paper is talking about. And of course, when there's another time to write an op-ed is when there are topical issues. For example, COVID-19, as we talk about it, there are so many issues surrounding this or this topic, that from gender-based violence to how it's impacted the economy. And I mean, I'm sure there are ways in which it's important to your subject area or your discipline that you can write about this. And if the upcoming events, for example, the upcoming United Nations Conference for Climate Change in Scotland in November, that's also an opportunity for you to do that. I don't know if somebody mentioned conversation in Africa, but I'm not sure if many people know about it. But it's a publication that actually handholds academics to write op-eds for non-scientific audiences. So they will partner with you. They will hold you through the process of writing that until you get something publishable. And the nice thing about Conversation Africa is that once you publish with them, what you publish can be picked up by many other local publications as well. So you get your op-ed actually gets legs. And another important thing to note is that they actually work with people who have PhDs. So if it's an opportunity for you as an academic to actually to get to talk about your work as well. And I would encourage anybody who's thinking about at least engaging the media to start with them, because of the experience that they'll give you to writing for the media. And then another opportunity is to do press releases. Juliette, I talked about the communications, working with the communications department. So if you have a lively communications department, they would actually help you to develop that press release and send it out to journalists, local and international journalists, to generate some interest into the work that you want to talk about. And ideally, they will live on your website. So that means that anybody who goes to your institution's website will be able to read about your work and get to know more about the work that you're doing. So I'm interested to know if there are any people who managed to do any op-eds, feature stories, to see how those who said who answered to the earlier question that they've used the media before, just to see how you've been using the media.
So we're back on Slido again, and the question we are asking is, how have you used mainstream media? I.e., was it op-eds, was it feature articles, was it a radio interview or a TV interview? So by mainstream media, we're talking about print, radio, TV. How have you used them in the past? A couple of you said CNN. Was that a TV interview? We had a couple who talked about the conversation. Was that an op-ed, a feature article? The difference between feature articles and op-eds is that feature articles tend to be a lot longer. Op-eds tend to be a lot shorter. So we're looking at 800 to 1,000 words thereabouts. I have never used them. Okay, wrote several op-eds, feature articles. Yes, feature articles coming up again. Interviews, radio and TV meetings, yes. Collaborative reporting, an interesting one. More feature articles, press releases, good. We'll just give this one a short time frame. Okay, 10 more seconds. Okay, press releases, bubble grew bigger, good. Okay, time's up. Debs, I'll move on to the next and last quick exercise of the day.
So we've just spoken about the traditional media, which is basically print, online, and broadcasts. There's another slide to the media, which is basically the social media, and because it's become so important as a source of information for people, it's quite important for scientists to use it if you want to be able to talk about your work. So that's why we're asking this question, just to see how much you're using it, especially for professional purposes. I'm interested to see if the person who said WhatsApp is using for professional purposes as well. It's quite interesting.
Happy to see Debs, happy to see their ResearchGate as well. Some people, people always forget that ResearchGate is also a social media platform. Instagram. ResearchGate growing bigger. Anyone who uses TikTok on their work? Debs, you know, people might laugh at TikTok, but with the advent of videos becoming the next big thing, we even noticed that Instagram had changed its business model to become more of a video platform as opposed to a photography platform. So those are good platforms. Okay, 10 more seconds. It looks like the winners of the day will be ResearchGate, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm closing the call. Back to you, Debs, for the social media component.
Okay, we can go to the next. So social media, why is it important for you to use it for your work specifically? It allows you to share content really quickly. Sorry. It allows you to share content really quickly and in real time, which means that you get a ready-made audience in real time, and it also establishes you as an expert. So people will see you tweet on social media. I know that people have actually gotten interviews with the BBC, with Nature, because of their presence on social media. So it's very important if you are looking for any career progression. So social media, it's a really cheap way to disseminate information, and it allows you to flesh out your narrative. For example, if you feel like I'm not ready to write an op-ed for the media, or I'm not ready to do an interview with a journalist, but I want to write about the work that I'm doing, then you can use LinkedIn, because LinkedIn actually allows you to do a more longer form writing, as long as you keep it simple for people to understand. And just a few tips for blogging for platforms like media. If you can approach it the way journalists approach a story, which is really begin with the conclusion. So when scientists do when you publish your papers, you start with the process and then you end with the conclusion. But normally people want to read the conclusion first, so that they can decide whether this is something that they want to read further or not. So you have to be able to start with that, which is you basically telling people why, when, what happened, and how it happened. And consider blogging as an alternative source to a press release, especially if you don't have a comms office at your institution. And make sure that it's quite conversational, because you really want to make sure that you are attracting an audience outside the people in your field. So you want to make sure that it's simple and to the point, and don't make it long. If you can keep it up to 800 words, because people don't like to read long articles, and make sure that whatever you're blogging about will be potentially ideas that you could potentially pitch to the media. So you're ensuring that it's interesting to the people that would read it outside of your discipline. And of course, look at what are the popular topics in the media that you can provide commentary on, or topical issues that you can provide commentary on by elongating them into your blog and publishing them on LinkedIn. And combine with multimedia as well. So you can experiment with format. At multimedia, use videos, use photos, because it makes it more engaging. And actually on social media, if you're on LinkedIn, people are more likely to read things that have photos and videos and things that don't have. And if you can, just copy the style of media and news outlets such as Nature, so that you make sure that you're writing something that will be that will be consumed, and you're not just posting things out there that nobody will consume. And if you can, befriend a journalist or a communications person within your department, or if you not within your if you don't have a communications department in your institution, just if you can widen your community to include a communications person who can review your blog before you publish it on LinkedIn, just to make sure that it's something that people can read and enjoy. And they say that on LinkedIn, Thursday is a higher engagement. So if you want to publish a blog or a longer piece on LinkedIn, just make sure that you publish it on Thursday. And of course, in as much as you don't want to dumb it down, just make sure that you're using language that people can understand. So if you can avoid scientific jargon, or if you don't have a choice, just make sure that you use scientific terms that you can explain. So building your narrative as you write that blog for LinkedIn, just make sure that you have an intro, which is basically the so what element. You want to be able to write something that people will be interested in. So people are interested in, why is it important? Why are you telling me this right now? Which is the so what element. And a journalist will always get asked by editors when they pitch a story, why is this important? And make sure that and the next paragraph would basically talk about you're providing evidence to what it is that you're talking about. So if your intro is talking about, maybe you're saying that over the past 5 years, we've seen a lot more people taking up vaccines, and you want to be able to provide the evidence of why you are saying there's a lot more people taking up vaccines. And of course, you're connecting that change to impact. What impact does it have? Maybe on the economy, what impact does it have on the ordinary person? And just because the important thing is for people to know what you're talking about has an impact on their daily lives. And of course, making sure that one element logically leads to the next as you build on the paragraph. And your conclusion should just go back to the so what element to remind the reader again that this is the story and this is why I'm telling you about this thing. So what gets engagement? Timing is very important. So if something is new today, don't talk about it a month later. I know for scientists, you can finish your research today and it's published a year later because of all the editing and all that. But with journalists and with the public, they're more interested in something that happens now. So if you can just make sure that you keep things relevant and fresh. The social currency, which is basically the impact, that the relevance to the audience. So if you're writing for a Nigerian audience, just make sure that it's relevant to that audience. If you're writing to an international audience, make sure that it's also relevant to the international audience. And just remember that you're writing to human beings. So human beings have feelings, human beings have thoughts, and things that really appeal to emotions are things that are more likely to get engagement more than anything else. And if you make it visual, especially if you are posting on social media, you are more likely to get engagement than if you're just posting without any visual. And also to follow the trends. Next slide. So if you are on social media and you're looking to grow your audiences, these are important things to remember, that it needs to be visual. people really engage with content on social media that is visual. And you need to ensure that you're topical, informative, and accessible. By accessible, I mean the language. Just remember that some people who read your tweets or especially on Twitter, or may read your posts, your social media posts, might be people outside of your followers or outside of the people that you know. So you just want to make sure that when somebody reads, they engage with it because the content and the language is accessible. And remember to follow others. Remember to follow the people that you want to be your audience, whether they are journalists, whether they are directors in institutions that you're interested, whether they are policymakers, ministers. Just make sure that you follow them. You never know, you might actually get a follow back. Next slide. And also remember to comment, especially if there are people that are working in your field that are tweeting and you're interested in what they're saying. Remember to comment, because that can enable you to grow your audiences as well. And also to tag people if you're writing about a topic that you think could be of interest to maybe a minister, or of interest to an organization. Remember to tag them as well. They could also retweet you, and you can increase your followers. And also remember to also follow the trends. So for example, if the trending topic for the day is maybe like here on that day, it was Africa Day, it's an opportunity for you to also talk about your work and situate it within the issues that are trending on the day of whenever you're posting a tweet. Next. And be consistent, because that will help you to grow and also maintain your audience. Otherwise, if you post today and then you post a month later, you might lose your audience. So just make sure that you're consistent as you use social media. And I just want to circle back to some tips. If you decide to use LinkedIn or you decide to use Twitter, because those are the things those are the main ones that people use for professional use. Just ensure that you don't mix business with pleasure, so that you don't lose your audience. Of course, I'm not saying don't be yourself, but I'm saying that just ensure that you are keeping the main goal, so that your audience can have that content that you want them to have, and avoid posting about colleagues or inappropriate photos, especially if you have kids and they might be using your phone, and sharing confidential information that could actually get you in trouble. And avoid engaging in controversial issues, especially if there are issues that have nothing to do with your work. And some do's: if you have a communications department, a request for your institutional social media policy, and just read it before you post, and read it so that you get to know how to engage on social media in line with your institutional policies. And then if you need to consult before you post. And if you feel like there's going to be a potential crisis from a tweet or an interview that you've done with the media, just refer to your communications department. Usually they have what we call crisis communications plans that will help you navigate any kind of controversy. And of course, join existing conversations on international days. Just to talk about crisis, I know a lot of scientists are nervous that if I post, what if what if my tweet or what if my LinkedIn post creates some controversy? Just to circle back to say that, remember that your communications department would have a crisis comms plan, and they can help you navigate that. So that should not make you shy away from posting. And I wanted to, thanks. I think we wanted to end with this quote. I don't know if you know Matigari. Sorry, I don't know if you know Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He's a famous Kenyan author. So he wrote a book called Matigari in the 90s, which was quite politically charged, talking about the environment of politics that had created fear in the land. And I just wanted to remind you that, fear really breeds misery in the land. I know some people will be like, I'm afraid to engage with the media, I'm afraid to do social media, but what it just means is that you are stuck, you're not progressing in your career because you've allowed fear to stop you from growing. Thank you.
Dapo, that marks the end of our slides, so back to you.
Thank you so very much. I think this is such a compelling right. Just by way, so it's not too long. And the challenge is really, how do you build engagement? How do you make, our own focus mostly, of course, the issues of climate change, health, and agriculture. And, coming back to my newsroom, I say, come, you guys, I have answers for you. So thank you so much, Deborah and Juliette. This is such a very wonderful session. I think just for the benefit of all members on the platform now, what we have gone through, it's really how expertise in science communication can really help us really turn science into something very tangible in our daily lives. And I think for those who have a media background in the house here, this is really one great treasure. The issue here, I think, it boils down to, and this is what two experts have helped us run through, is that media has consequence. It really has the power, and it can move things. No doubt about it. Media and bedraggled today by many challenges. Yet it is important to see that even our own engagement with media can help move media to very important dimensions. And if nothing, and I personally understand the apathy and, if you like, frigidity of scientists talking to journalists, and the whole COVID environment proved that so much. This is a time we really need quality information, yet, the great scientists who are doing great work, especially epidemiologists, are like, oh no, well, we have to be careful, you say things and so on. But, encounters like this really help to break the wall. And thank you so much for what you guys have given. I think in particular, what our two experts have also helped us do is to see how we can move from what generally is a legacy media environment to the new social media environment, and how that can really empower our work. And not only that, but relationship with audience. At the end of the day, the goal of science is really to improve society. So if we are closet tied to our laboratories, it's probably, I think the lesson we are getting from them is that, frankly, it makes no sense, So the third tier of scientists, which has spoken, science communicator, this is the age for that, and this is helpful. I think one of the great takeaways here really will be how to really help both I think the frontier itself and our experts to see how we can bring media that will benefit for things like this. So I think at this point it will be appropriate to then look at some of the questions that people have been yeah, so thank you very much, Bright. Bright is terribly efficient, but it can make people like us fail out of a class. So, well, Juliette, there's a question which, I'm sure you've addressed it in one way, but we must not tire to to restate it. So how exactly can one connect to the media? How serious can one's work be before he or she can take it to the media?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Dapo and Bright, for your efficiencies. So in terms of reaching out to the media, now I'll answer one part and maybe let Deborah come in. We've talked about the use of press releases. We've talked about the use of op-eds or blogs. One way we used to support African scientists to connect to the media would be, we would put together their case studies or their success stories. And the good thing about success stories, I mean, they're really short, 500 words. You can put together a quick highlight of what your work is. So for example, we had one scientist who was looking at fisher communities and how upstream, downstream water was affecting the fish and the fishing industry itself. And we put together a really good story about how the communities rely on fishing and what the government needs to do in terms of policies, you know, to make sure that people who rely on fishing as an for survival have access to fish, and what are the policy measures that need to be put in place. Because of that, and also actually the impact of climate change for this fishing community. Because of that, we were able to list, even to journalists, what are the key success stories we've put together. And there were a couple of them. Happened to be one of them. We sent out about 10 different articles, from fishery to climate change to biomedical science to malaria to HIV. Journalists were able to see the topic, and then they were able to do a story from that. So, you know, putting together a quick impact story, quick success story on your work, pitching it to journalists, using your science communicators, whether they're in-house, as Debs has said, or whether they're science communicators that you know, you could actually say, is this story worth media coverage? And we can advise you on that. And sometimes journalists will come back and say, I like this story, I want to interview the person. Other times they'll come back and say, this story is not topical for now, but I'd want to pitch it for the next quarter, especially if it's a magazine. So always just put your content out there. The use of social media, it's not by chance that we were actually talking about social media tonight, even though Bright invited us to talk about media, and I think he meant mainstream media, but you know, use LinkedIn, use your own personal profiles, put out your story on those platforms, tag as much as possible, tag BBC, tag Al Jazeera, tag your national media houses. They'll be able to pick up the story if it's of interest to them. Debs, do you want to take on the second part of the question?
Yeah, so I always say, because I know that sometimes scientists are not, when they're still doing the research, they might not be ready to talk about the work. I say that there are issues around the work, your discipline, or the research that you're doing, that could be topical or of interest to the media. So you don't need to wait until your research is ready. You can actually talk about topical issues that surround your research. For example, if you are doing research on let's say agriculture, for example, or a specific crop, and right now we are going into the November climate change conference, and the issue is climate change, and maybe that specific crop that you are researching on, there's been impact on it because of climate change. You can talk about the impact. It's not your research, it's just the topical issues that surround the area that you're working in. So essentially, I'm saying that your work doesn't need to be serious, to be that advanced for you to be able to go to talk to the media, because there are so many things that the media is looking for you to talk about. Thanks.
Good.
And Dapo, sorry, just quickly, let me add on to that also, that
Yeah.
the phrase that we also like to use, that's called issue hijacking. So if you're a health researcher looking at a topic of, say, obesity, and you were wondering, how do I fit my topic on obesity in the current conversation around COVID-19, which is a trending topic? I mean, even if you're just to talk about nutrition, and even if you look at the consequences of COVID to nutrition and people working from home, people not being able to exercise, and then bring in your evidence on obesity, it's becoming a risk factor for high blood pressure. You know, we've seen how hypertension, for example, contributes to COVID-19. Is it mortality? it's very important for you to look at, in the context of the conversations going around, how do I feed into them? And then how do I issue hijack without necessarily taking away from the topic, but adding value to that conversation? Because we don't live in a vacuum. Everything is interlinked. A lot of risk factors tend to be connected. So it's very important to be able to look at what is happening around you and how do you fit into the current conversation.
Thank you very much. Our next question will be, can the social media also exaggerate your profile and career? How can it be used moderately?
So I'll say that social media is a very important tool for building a scientist brand and also building their profile, establishing them as an expert in their field. So using it moderately, one of the things that we help scientists do is also to develop messages around the work that they do. So when you develop messages around the work that you do, it means you have a set of communication that you can always refer to when you're talking about your work. If you're worried about what kind of, if you're worried that it might actually provoke controversy as opposed to communicating the way you want it to, then those your key messages that you have developed, and if you develop them with a communication specialist, then you're able to develop content that would enable you to talk about your work in a way that will be more engaging and maybe and hopefully less provocative if you don't want it to be provocative. But at the end of the day, I'll say don't shy away from using social media or from using these tools because you're worried about the outcome. You're more likely to get good out of it than to get the bad out of it. So I'll say, please do go ahead and use it, and don't use it moderately. Use it a lot. That's how you are going to grow your audiences, and that's how you're going to get people to know you. If you use it moderately, nobody will know you.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to see what. So in using the media, how best can one harmonize different work that business and career they are into in order not to confuse their audience? Okay, how do you separate the channels of business and career while you're using media? I guess it's what the questioner is asking here.
So Dapo, I quite like this question and I'm happy to take it. You and Bright were talking about earlier the development of a book. And one of the things Deborah and I were trying to do earlier this year was develop a science communication module to guide scientists for different platforms or how to communicate. When it comes to social media, I think it's very important to identify which social media platform is useful for what audiences. So for example, we know very well Facebook is very good with family and friends and updating everyone on the new dress you bought last night or last evening or the dinner party you went, and just the sharing of many photos. Instagram, we also recognize that it's very good for businesses, and with even COVID and the pandemic, we've recognized that if many businesses are not on Instagram, then they're not getting to their target audiences. So as a researcher, I would say the LinkedIn, the Twitter, the ResearchGate are really good platforms for you to use and to separate if you wanted, say, Twitter for political conversations. And the interesting thing about Twitter, if you look at the conversations that are there, normally tend to be issue-based. Many people, when there's an outbreak, they'll quickly go to Twitter. Who's posting what's happening? I want to know about a riot taking place. There's a Black Lives Matter convening near Washington, D.C. Most people will go to Twitter very quickly. People will not go to LinkedIn. We know LinkedIn is for jobs, it's for connections, it's for networking. So you need to identify those platforms so that the conversation that you're having that conversation on the right platforms. Instagram, again, like we said, good for photos, good for videos. I know I said TikTok. I know sometimes TikTok has gotten some bad publicity or rep because of the content that is on there. But if you can maximize it and use it to your advantage, you can look at how do I record a video of my cell or whatever it is I'm looking through my microscope and be able to share it. So you need to identify those platforms. And for us, developing that sort of module was to also be able to guide researchers on the best platforms to be able to use.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So there's a question. Does the African Science Desk encourage and foster collaborative reporting between scientists and journalists? I think shamelessly, I have to confess that I asked the question.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, so I think it was going to be the second phase, actually, the fostering of collaboration between scientists and journalists. But I think we've had to pause a little bit out of that. But hopefully, maybe in the future and in another life, we will be able to take out that collaboration.
We have publishing findings in academic journals has been the norm and a yardstick for assessing achievements. Is social media in any way better, I guess, for this kind of endeavor?
Oh my goodness, this is where I emphasize target audience, target audience, target audience. You know, academic journals, it's a currency for scientists. We can never take it away. And I think it's almost like comparing apples and mangoes, right? Scientific publications will always be there. They serve a specific purpose. I know the conversation, and Deborah and I,
sorry.
No, that's okay. And Deborah and I have been involved a lot in the discussions around open access publishing, such that the information you're publishing is not under paywalls. Scientific journals, I think for the longest time, you'd pay to publish, pay to access it. Social media just makes that knowledge accessible. So it's not that we are going to be able, by you posting on social media, yes, it gives you visibility, yes, it begins to brand you, but again, you still have, I think there is value in the academic publication in terms of peer review. Your peers get to review the article before it's published to confirm that it's credible as well. That credibility sometimes is challenged on social media. And we've had conversations around fake truths on social media. I mean, we saw a certain president use it for their own gains. So we can't discount that. And it's not a competition of who's better and who's worse. It's more the value of what do you get on the different platforms and for different audiences.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's the last question. That was so.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I guess thank you so much for everything. Wonderful session. I think we're all saying how grateful and thankful. So I get right back on your lane. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Juliette and Deborah. This has been fantastic, and I think it's an eye-opener. In my opinion, you have just made an introduction into an uncharted territory for many scientists who are here. And I think the perspectives you have shared here have really been on the back burner. We need to bring them forward. Of course, you mentioned that this has not been so popular amongst African scientists, how to communicate, how to reach audiences, how to sell ourselves. Perhaps when you were presenting, I was just thinking next year, we need to invite you to go beyond this introduction, really, so that we can begin to dig deeper, because if we're inviting scientists, accomplished scientists, to showcase what they've been doing in their research with regards to how it's influencing African development, it's really important to assess how they have employed the tools you have presented here.
please get ready. Next year we'll bring you on board again, so you go beyond this introduction because it's quite interesting to see how this works really. We need to make ourselves known. I think that is the key thing here, in the right way. All right, we go into the next session of our program today. Please stay with us. I think this will be also very exciting because you will be listening to those you have not perhaps known before, or known what they are doing, know what their career is. So I wouldn't introduce them. They will introduce themselves in their different breakout rooms. I have now created the breakout rooms. So we will call you back. There are 2 breakout rooms. We'll call you back exactly half an hour from now so that we can make conclusions and then of course send you home. So we have Dr. Karen Kluth from South Africa and Professor Yasser Albetraoui from Egypt, who will be giving us their career story. And I have assigned each of them to a breakout room. So you have no choice here really, because I've done it so that you fall into one of these groups, and any group you fall into, just accept this with all your mind. All right, so please open the room. Just choose the room that appear in front of your screen, and I will see you again in half an hour. Okay, I hope we are all back. It has been a quick one. I think you must have learned one thing from your session. I attended the first session. We divided between me and Eman to go to the second breakout room. I went to the first one. And one thing that came up there was the elevator speech and 3-minute thesis speech. So I'm speaking for group breakout group 1. If I got it wrong, just correct me. So I want to ask those from group 2, what is the one thing you learned from the presentation of Professor? Yes, sir. Yes, Olabisi Dedeke, please.
Thank you so much, Bright. Thank you, Professor Yasser. What I learned majorly from this presentation is the fact that one should live one's life to give back to one's community. The decision not to remain in the UK and going back to Cairo actually got me. Thank you, Prof. Thank you for giving to the world. Don't forget the children in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Olabisi. Thank you. Much appreciated. Yes, please, we should all give back. I remember one of the sessions we had during the course of the seminar series, and the question we asked people was, think and discuss how your scientific research is contributing to the development of Africa from your local setting, from the national level, from the continental level. So we sent people to the breakout rooms and brought them back. And one of the common items people mentioned was, I've not even thought about it before, that my research can contribute to development. So it's very important, obviously, what you're saying, that Professor Yester has set out to give back. That is what science is all about. If it doesn't touch life, if it doesn't make our lives better, then we need to rethink how we are doing our science. Any quick thoughts again from group 2, and then I will go to group 1. One thing you learned? Group 2, breakout room 2, where Professor Yese was presenting. Was it interesting for you? Okay, I go back to group 1. One thing else you learned, I've given one, the elevator speech. What else did you learn? Breakout room 1. Or you want me to speak again on your behalf? Okay, I have a Siosa. Please go on.
Okay, thank you very much. Although I'm speaking for group 2.
Group 2, okay.
Yes, another thing we learned from Professor was that we should learn from the pioneers, imitate their methods, and then we can now develop our own methods based on our experience after imitating theirs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone for group 1? I think along that line, Dr. Karen mentioned the importance of mentorship, identifying a mentor who you can rely to guide you, because it's important to learn from those who have gone through the path you are taking. It's very important. It can make life easy, quick, and then they are in the embodiment of knowledge. So mentorship is very important, and we also emphasize that in SFI. Okay, not to take your time too long from these sessions, I just want to appreciate Professor Yasser El Batrawi, sorry if I don't get it right, and then Dr. Karen Clote for making out time from your busy schedule to come here to share your career story. Please don't refuse next time we call you, because the goal is to empower Africa for greater heights. And I think having this conversation provides us the opportunities to do that and to share our experiences. So thank you very much. We appreciate your work. And then we will put this together, and then we will share them on our YouTube channel so that those who did not attend today can also look at what you're doing in your various research. And Dr. Karen has kindly said I can share her email, her contact, if anyone is interested in coming back to her for questions, collaboration, and so on and so forth. All right. Unless someone has, Karen, you want to say something?
Yes, I want to thank you also for this excellent program you have. You know, in excelling the excellence on our continent. Thank you very much, and to all the speakers. It was really a very insightful session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Do you have something to say also?
Hello.
Yes, Esther will come. I'll come back to you. Let me give.
Esther. Esther is speaking.
Yeah, I will come back to you, Esther. Let me give to Professor. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Prof, do you hear me?
Okay.
I think Prof is not here. Okay, Esther, you can go on.
Okay, I'm from group 1. Part of what I learned was that we need to have a work-life balance. Then we need to create confidence. Then we set limits to our work limits, to our commitments, so that it will not affect the family life. It needs to be balanced in whatever we want to do.
Thank you very much, Esther.
Then also in our skill development, need to manage our time well. Then we advise to write grant or to apply for fellowship in order to come out.
Yeah, those are very important soft skills Karen mentioned that we need to learn. The work-life balance is quite important.
Right.
All right, yeah, Eman.
Yes. I want to stress on one important point, which is one can be taken from our session today, is the importance of media in improving the science and development. What we have taken from Dr. Yasser's story is that the success of the surgeries that he has done, the media participated in sharing this important note, and this gives a new life to new children across all over the world, and it added to what science can do to the community. Already, if media is not sharing these successes, no one could know, and these children who have disabilities couldn't be operated, and they didn't have a new life. So that's important to share our research stories and our success stories as a scientist in any field through media.
Thank you very much, Eman. I think that is a fantastic coincidence, really, to have Juliette and Deborah presenting on the role of the media and the importance of communication, and then Professor Yasser presenting his perspective on how media has been a great tool to give or fine-tune his progress as a scientist. Okay, I will give the last point to Unisa before we make conclusions. Unisa, yeah, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Bright. Thank you for the opportunities you've given me over the period I had contact with you. Thank you very much for the opportunity interacting with Professor Yasser. No doubt about that. The contribution of Professor Yasser in mentorship is obvious. And I believe that Professor Yasser is a son or is a child of opportunities, meaning that right from childhood, he was actually given opportunity to succeed. And he took advantage of that. And that takes us to a situation in Africa, Nigeria in particular. How will we be able to give opportunities to children so that they can excel to their point of destination? I want to thank Professor Yasser so much, but it still asks a question. How do we give children of Africa opportunity to excel? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Unisa, for that viewpoint and that question. I think that question is a rhetorical one. We all have to think about it because it goes across. How do we give the African child opportunity to excel? They say charity begins at home. And parents, we need to ensure that this happens. Education is power, they say. All right, so once again, I thank the speakers in the plenary today, Juliette and Deborah, for the fantastic presentation, and our eminent moderator, Dapo, for doing a fantastic job and staying with us until now. I also thank the presenters at My Career, My Story Professor Yese and Dr. Karen. Thank you very much, the audience. Please, we have the evaluation. Eman has just posted the link. Please help us to evaluate the session. You can do it now, you can do it after now, you can do it before you go to bed. Tell us what you feel, what you think about the session, because it helps us to improve future sessions. Before you go, I just want to tell you that our next seminar is coming on the 3rd of October, and that is what you will not want to miss. Is money matters. Money matters. Many of us are struggling to get money to do our research. In the African continent, you will not hear it from anybody better than Professor Catherine Gila, who is the acting executive director of the African Academy of Sciences. They give money, they apply for money, and so she's an embodiment of what money means to research and how to get it. Please join us on the 3rd of October. Bring your friends, bring your colleagues, bring your questions. Let's bombard her with these questions. How do we survive as African scientists? So on that note, Eman likes to always take pictures. I will give her the remaining 3 minutes or so to take pictures of those who are present. And after that, you can, of course, now you can open your camera and show your face. If you want to open your speaker, and it's your time.
You already on?
Yeah, we are ready, Eman.
Okay.
Eman wants your smiles, please.
Thank you very much for everyone. I would love to leave you.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're grateful.
Thank you. We appreciate.
Thank you, Professor Yassin. Thank you, Professor Brad. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Yeah, see you on October 3rd. Yeah.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. So I close the session now. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night. And see you during the weekend, man.
Thank you.